What a busy news week it has been, my brothers and sisters. Now is the time to get you perspective. It's time to get you context. It's time to engage with you. It's time for It's Topical. To you, South African, those watching around the world. This is It's Topical. My name is Blaine Herman. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Trifotsan Swilengwe. As always, our digital audience is here. They're going to pop up on your screen. There we go. Welcome to the program. Welcome to you all. They are here to observe the discussions tonight and also jump in and add their input. They are also well aware that they might not get comments during the course of tonight's program, but they are here. They've been invited to observe the program live because of their interactions with us during the course of the week. But just a reminder, digital audience, if you want to engage with us, please, if you want to raise a question, add an input comment, please raise your virtual hand and I'll try my very, very best to bring you into the conversation. Now, to our question of the week. Former public protector Thuli Madonsela said state capture is a criminal conduct, a form of corruption, but more nefarious than corruption. Why? Because she says ordinarily corruption is more transactional, where state capture goes to the heart of democracy, stealing the state away from democratic processes. What does this mean for me and you going forward? There is, no shortage of allegations and information in the public discourse, but the onerous task for law enforcement now is to turn such information into evidence that will be admissible in court. How difficult of a task is this? We have the advocate on the program tonight. We're going to get you some answers, which leads us to the question of the week. We're asking, President Cyril Ramaphosa will make known his intentions on implementing the state capture report recommendations within 4 months. What are your expectations? As always, a simple question, complicated answer. Walk with me while I get you some context with regards to this. Look, the president said within 4 months, he's going to brief Parliament on the report as well as give us an indication of his intentions. What does that mean? In the meantime, what happens? Please send us your thoughts at It's Topical SABC. You can also give us a call, 011-714-5958. We would love to hear from you during the course of today's program. Now, before we get to the discussions of the day, let's first bring you the views of ordinary citizens about the final state capture report, which was released on Wednesday evening at the Union Buildings. You know by now that this is the show that gives citizens a voice as we reflect on the stories of the week. Now here is the Word on the Street feature from the people in Sandton.
Now that the final state capture report is out, what stood out for you? It is clear that people who have been responsible have been clearly named, all of them, and now we expect that action must be taken against them with no further delay.
First of all, what must be analyzed is the effect state capture has had on, firstly, the economy, and secondly, the future effects that it has on the economy. State capture, in essence, means that the money that was taken from state itself and hence led to corruption. What must happen is that an inquiry must be made on the exact amount of money that was taken, and that money must somehow come back into the economy.
That money is needed in South Africa. I mean, we're talking what? A deficit of about 300 and something billion rands. That's quite a huge gap to fill. So please pay back the money. Thank you.
What stood out for me? Basically, I think there were so many things that actually stood out for me. Heavy weights being implicated, but now the question is, what is the remedial action? What's the way forward? All those that were implicated, will there be impartiality? That is what I'm expecting to see, how decisive they're going to be.
The report, first of all, why was it late? What were they trying to cover up? We already know in South Africa that the state was captured for a fact. We don't even need that report. We know who captured the state, and we can see every day the implications. The youth is unemployed. We have constant blackouts every day, and the people who are even mentioned on that report, they're not going to be held accountable.
All right, that's your views. Vox Pops, we call it, voice of the people. But I want to look at some of the interesting utterances that were captured during the report handover ceremony this weekend. This should give you a good overall sense of the purpose and the magnitude of the commission. Have a look at this, and we basically got this from the utterances from the chairperson of the commission, the Chief Justice, now Chief Justice, Raymond Zondo, who was then the Deputy Chief Justice, reflecting on his tenure as the chair of the commission. Now, this is what he had to say. We have had some delays. It would have been difficult to avoid those delays. He went on to say people have a right to go to court and challenge the report. He says, I struggle to find any decision I've taken that I regret. Now, that is very interesting. I'm going to bring in political editor Mzondile Mbeje. He was actually at that press briefing. When that was said, what was the reaction in the room? Stand by for that. He also went on to say, I don't want to make anybody think that this is a report is all you need to rid South Africa of state capture or make it that state capture never happens again. And he goes on to say that this might be blocked in your shot. Let's try to clear that. I do believe that the recommendations that have been made, if they are implemented, will make a significant contribution towards that goal. How? That is the question. Let's hear from a man who has been tasked to implement these recommendations, President Cyril Ramaphosa. This is what he had to say during that briefing. He says, I think one has to take both of us at our word in that we have dealt with each other with a great deal of integrity. And he was talking about, coming from these delays that we've been having and the interactions. I'll get you more answers with regards to that as well. Let's clear that. Also, he went on to say, I know many people will be impatient, wanting immediate action. Also, the state capture was an assault on democracy. It violated the state capture, the rights of every man, woman, and child. And he went on to say that this report provides us with the opportunity to make a decisive break with the era of state capture. Let's take it to a man in the know. I want to bring in Mzondile Mbeje. He is the SABC News political editor of politics, big task. Now, what you're currently seeing on your screen was the first time, Mzwai, that we crossed to you. It was at 9 o'clock when the state capture inquiry began 4 years ago. All those years later, did you get a sense when you first started crossing the purpose and the magnitude of what this commission would become?
Well, a very good evening to you, Blaine, and the viewers. I'll be very honest. I did not think that it was going to go this long. Remember, the initial, recommendation was that it be 6 months. But I think the judge, before he could start the work, he asked for an extension of 18 months. So we thought it was going to take something like 2 years at most, really. So in that 2 years, so we did not anticipate anything beyond what we saw. So clearly, I'll be very honest, I didn't think we're going to go beyond this.
Let's just talk about what were the big outcomes of this. Yeah. But before that, when you were at that room, when that final report was being handed, or the final part of it, there was these delays. You heard what the president had to say with regards to their interactions with the Chief Justice. How did that sit with in the court of public opinion when that was mentioned and the delays that followed?
To be quite honest, I remember our colleagues, we were talking about this quite a lot, because even when I was doing the crossings with our colleagues right here, so the question of the delays was really of concern. Yeah. And it did somehow perhaps create a bit of anxiety from those who are watching to say, we've waited for 4 years, we've been told about 4 o'clock, it's not happening, what's the reason? But I think once the proceedings started, so they were able to explain that, you know what, we've got to this point, so we needed to make sure that everything is done right. I think that's why the Chief Justice Blaine said in that report to say, everything I did, I don't regret a thing.
Right. Yeah, let's bring in our digital audience and see how that landed with them. Let's start with Mos Ntla. When you heard that, sir, that the Chief Justice said he regrets nothing when he looks back at the decisions that he has made, what was your initial thoughts?
Thank you, Blaine. Yeah, the first thoughts were really one of gratitude that here's a person who for the last 4 years took a lot of strain on himself personally, but on the rest of his team to work through the gory details that went into the capture of our state, and it must have been very difficult at each point to really get to the root of it, because there were a lot of people trying to hide stuff. But in the end, for him to come to the conclusion that he stands by every word that he is put in his report, I think gives us a lot of confidence, and we can come away from this with a lot of gratitude for him and his team, that they have served our nation so well.
Bianca, let's bring you in. Do you agree with regards to this report? Does it build a certain amount of trust within the public sphere or not? Bianca, if you can unmute. All right, it seems that we're having a bit of an issue with Bianca. Let's bring in Tina Bella. Tina, you can hear us, I assume. With regards to the recommendations and what happens now in the next 4 months, what's your expectations?
Well, actually, I have one question. Why haven't we come to a decision yet?
A decision about what?
About this whole state capture thing. It's been going on, if I read the report correctly, the last part of the report, right, that it's coming on from 2014. And think of everybody that has been affected by this. And there's nobody that can stand up and say enough is enough. We all know what the issues are. We've seen it. There are lots of evidence in the report, dates, times, names, everything is there, but we still go on. Right.
The understanding is that certain parts need further investigation. That will take time. I was listening to or was reading a report, I think it was the NPA report, 2020-2021, where Shamela Batoy said that some of the cases are highly complex and it might take time to prosecute. Let's bring in Wayne. Wayne, what do you think with regards to, look, I hear Tino Bella saying that people want results now. You heard the president saying that people expected the next morning for people to be in orange overalls. It doesn't work like that. Processes need to follow. What's your take?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we all want these prosecutions to happen sooner rather than later, but they are complex. And you must remember, the NPA is dealing with murder, robbery, rape, crime every single day. This is 10 years of backlog. They need to be capacitated. They have been decimated over these years. Now, that's not an excuse for them, but we must be mindful of the fact that this commission has taken nearly 4 years, 3.5 years. The work is now done. It is a judicial commission. It is formal, and it's a very exciting stage for us. Things have been happening. The Transnet crew have been rounded up, with more coming, and next month that court case gets underway. So there's a lot that is happening, but a lot more needs to happen, and we think that this is the catalyst now for capacitation of the criminal justice system, the NPA, the ID, and others to get cracking, because as Bella says, as Tina says, the information is there, the evidence is there. Let's now put this great document to work.
Yeah. I want to bring in our guest, Advocate Thuli Madonsela, former public protector. She joins us now live. Mzondile Mbeche is here with us. Digital audience, if you have a question for either Mzwai or Advocate Madonsela, please raise your virtual hand. You can throw us some questions as well. Let's get this conversation going. Let's try to understand what we're dealing with here. Advocate Professor, thank you very much indeed for your time. Great pleasure to have you on the program. I've heard you describing the whole state capture saga as a Leviathan. For those who don't know, that's a sea serpent in mythology and theology. I've heard the Jacob Zuma Foundation saying that this is a toothless inquiry and they're investigating something of a phantom called state capture. When you read that report, Professor Madonsela, was it unambiguous in the sense that there was state capture? Was it clear and cut?
Thank you, dear colleague and SABC, for this privilege. Yes, my reading of the state capture report is that it's not equivocating on state capture. Justice Zondo, or Chief Justice Zondo, makes a very distinct finding that there was state capture and that President Zuma, his son, and the Guptas were at the center of it.
So if that is the conclusion that state capture occurred, then the follow-up question would be, what was the motive? How can South Africans get to that answer?
We have to look at the genesis of state capture to be able to find out why. Justice Zondo does not tell us why. He is the Chief Justice of the country, and therefore we should understand why he has steered away from certain conclusions, because these may well come back to the courts. So he stuck to the guns around what was the issue. And therefore, to find out why there was state capture, we have to start at the beginning. Mcebisi Jonas whistle blew that the Minister of Finance, Nhlanhla Nene, was removed at the instance of and for the benefit of a state capture arrangement between President Zuma, the Gupta brothers, and the president's son. He gave us an indication of how it all went down when they tried to recruit him to replace Minister Nhlanhla Nene, and he refused, and the rest is history. All that then has been corroborated by what happened at Trillion, all of the information that already the actors at Trillion were aware that a minister who was friends with the Guptas was going to come in. And of course, that ended up being Minister Van Rooyen, who was at Treasury for a few days. And then he got replaced temporarily by Mr. Gordon, who was then removed and replaced with an amenable or a compliant substitute, who happened to be Mr. Msebenzi Zwane, who turned up. It wasn't Minister Msebenzi Zwane, the first minister that turned up with Gupta, with people who have been proven to be Gupta associates, was Minister Van Rooyen.
So that is the genesis as spelled out in terms of what we heard over the last 4 years. We said that the digital audience, if they want to ask a question, please put your hands up. I understand. Mangaliso, you want to ask a question or comment? Go ahead. Mangaliso, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to pose a question to the former public protector, Advocate Thuli Madonsela, regarding the fact that now, after almost 400 days of questioning and inquiry by the Commission, we are sitting with the part 2 of the report, still unable to point out as per reference to the real reason that why this commission was established in the first place. Because if you go back to the establishment of the Commission of Inquiry on State Capture, it was not to prove instantly whether President Zuma and his allies were at the helm of state capture, but it was also to ask a lot of questions, which include none other than the Guptas. Were there any other families that were also involved in the state capture? Because it says here that there could have been other families, and we know that in this country, the powerful families that can be at a better position to capture the state are the Rupert's family, the Oppenheimer family, the Parsons family, and all of them in Stellenbosch, where the public protector resides. So has there been a further look at other families besides the Gupta family? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mangaliso. Look, Professor Madonsela, initially, many people thought that this would have been finished within 6 months. It took 6 years from the time that you released your State of Capture report. The mandate, I understand, was widened. To Mangaliso's point, did it suffice in terms of getting us a full sense of when we talk about state capture?
Well, the report has been wide because President Zuma expanded the Commission's mandate. The investigation that I ordered as public protector, did not recommend, but ordered, was not going to look for everything and anything under the sun. It was very focused. It starts with the dismissal of the Minister of Finance, which cost this country a fortune, and an allegation that that was part of state capture. It was to facilitate state capture. And then secondary allegations were that this is not an ad hoc thing to happen. It's part of a systematic scheme where the state has been captured through a relationship between the Guptas, the president's son, and the president. And this relationship is being leveraged to control what happens in government, particularly regarding the appointment of people in strategic positions in government, the public procurement system, some licenses in government, such as mining licenses, etc. And thirdly, law enforcement to evade accountability. So it was very clear. It's like, dear colleagues, if somebody has been killed, and you're asked to investigate that, you've got to investigate that and conclude. And it's an issue creep to say, oh, other people have died as well. You've got to finish what you're supposed to do, and then you can go extra.
So just directly from Mangaliso's point, you don't think other families should have been looked at?
No, I'm saying the investigation I ordered was not in a whataboutism. It was like a normal criminal justice process. When something wrong has happened, you just focus on that. But President Zuma made it wider. Hence, we now know what happened at Busasa. And I don't know what President Zuma's motives were, but in my view, they seemed nefarious. But it went wide. And because it went wide, we know more than we would have known if the commission had only done what I asked it to do. So if you're talking about other families, the Busasa group got revealed for what it was doing. If there's the Ruperts or whoever did anything else, you've got to say, you can't just say people have captured. You've got to say so-and-so was involved in the appointment of so-and-so. And through the appointment of so-and-so controls this and that, and give us evidence to that effect. Here, we have very concrete evidence of all of these Gupta-related spider web of appointments, and we have evidence of what those people did in controlling the state procurement system and just really making it a private machinery for enriching companies co-owned by the president's son and the Gupta family.
Let's bring in Sibusiso. I see you. I'm going to come to you in a short while. During that press briefing by the Jacob Zuma Foundation, we've heard that the foundation characterizes the report as bias in favor of a faction that supports Cyril Ramaphosa.
Yeah.
Any reaction to that from the governing party?
Well, no, there has been no reaction. Well, President himself is out of the country, but from the ANC, and I guess because of the current dynamics within the ANC, they are busy with conferences, but there's been no reaction, and clearly as the week develops, so probably there may be something to that effect, but for now, nothing.
Right. Sibusiso, you had your hand up. I can't see Sibusiso here. Is he here? All right, let's take Elvis. Elvis, you with us. Your comment or question to Advocate Thuli Madonsela? If you can unmute, Elvis. There we go.
Thank you very much. No, I don't have a question except for making a comment to say that, look, the issue of the report, after I saw the report, we knew that the report is coming and its implication to some people, because as you could see what was happening with this pala farming and auction thing of the president, we knew that the pattern of how they act each time something comes will happen. But the report itself, I find it comprehensive, and it is really, we need to give it time. We can't just, like Advocate Madonsela says, we can't just wake up tomorrow and say, let us prosecute this one and that one and that one. But the Oppenheimer issue and the Rupert is just a political, I don't know, people who know English better than me will explain it. It's a political slogan. There's nothing that they can be implicated for, except for if there's somebody that has information to say, we know this about the Oppenheimer or the Rupert. Right. But the report itself is fine. The report itself is fine. The process must be allowed to unfold so that it gives the results we want, because we cannot just rush and end up getting people escape because of some technicalities of a judicial process.
Right. Lawrence, you have your hand up. Your comment. If you can unmute, Lawrence. There you go.
Sorry about that. Thank you so much for affording me this opportunity. Mine, it's a question directed to our former public protector. Does she think the terms of reference for the commission were wide enough to accommodate everything, like to look for everything around the state capture? And by everything, I mean also including the private sector in this case. And also, does she think the 4 months that the president have requested to look into the report and then follow up or recommend what needs to be done, is that sufficient, or is that too long? I mean, we as South African, we want to see action. You know, we want to see some sort of action where people are being held accountable.
All right, I'm sure Advocate Madonsela is taking or marking your questions. Bianca, I saw your hand up. Bianca Arnold, if you can unmute, go on and ask your question.
Cool. I was just going to talk about the actual genesis of state capture. And I think what so many of us in South Africa forget is that it's not the monetary value. Because those, depending on what country you come from wherever across the world, is so different. But what it was for us was the actually hollowing out of absolutely every possible tendril that the ANC could get themselves into. And it's unfortunate that any self-rectification that they plan on bringing in just cannot be if there's no sweeping change. Because we cannot have extreme growth if we don't have extreme change.
Look, those are the questions. We've got Mzondi Lembeche, we've got Advocate Thuli Madonsela here to get you these answers. I'm going to get you those answers in a short while. We're asking you the question as to what do you think? What's your expectations with regards to what happens in the next 4 months when President Cyril Ramaphosa is mulling over this? Please send us your thoughts at It's Topical SABC. A very good evening to you once again, and a warm welcome to our SABC2 viewers. It's such a great pleasure having you on board. My name is Blaine Herman. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Trifosan Solengwe. This is It's Topical. It's a program where you have your say on the burning issues of the week. Why? Because you and I understand that news is only useful in the context of humanity. So we have a packed program here tonight. As always, our central voice is here, our digital audience. They are joining us from all corners of the world via Zoom with pertinent views on the issues of the day. Now to that issue at hand. Just to remind our SABC2 viewers, President Cyril Ramaphosa will make known his intentions on implementing the state capture report recommendations within 4 months. So we are asking you tonight, what are your expectations? Please engage with us. You can tweet us at It's Topical SABC. We'll take a look at some of your comments during the course of the program. You can also give us a call, 011-714-5958. or WhatsApp us on 078-459-1819. We have the former public protector here, Adv Thuli Madonsela. We have SABC News politics editor Mzwani Nebeche. The better minds on the program here tonight, so we're going to get you some answers. I want to take it to Advocate Madonsela with regards to some of the comments that our digital audience has. What do you have to say, ma'am?
Thank you, sir. To firstly, Elvis, about whether the terms of reference were enough to cover other forms of state capture. The original terms of reference were not intended to cover any other forms of state capture. It worked like a normal criminal justice investigation because corruption is a crime. And therefore, we dealt with what was alleged, and what was alleged was to do with what happened at Treasury. And then a secondary allegation from Themba Maseko was that Treasury is not an oddity. It's part of a systemic process of capturing aspects of the state and repurposing them for private gain. Secondly, the investigation is expanded by President Zuma, was wide enough to capture any state capture. But for a finding to be made, you've got to say so-and-so was involved in the appointment of so-and-so and provide us with evidence about what happened, and so-and-so did this and that. An attempt was made, for example, to backdate the investigation into what happened at ESCOM to then bring in the original contracts between ESCOM and Glencore. What the Chief Justice did with that is his story. But from our story, we were not investigating how Glencore was given any contract or how it lost it. We're just investigating simple. What happened? What should have happened? Was there a discrepancy? If there was a discrepancy, does it become improper conduct? And if so, how do we remedy it? In relation to the disposal of the of the company, I'm just going to have enough gotten the company concerned. And what we were looking at is, if you have a company that is in distress, that's a supplier to government that is in distress. The public procurement management system says, even if nobody is in distress, when you procure a service provider to government, whether they're supplying you with goods or services, you've got to make sure that they're functional. So how can a company that doesn't even have money to buy the company in distress be functional? So that's number one. Then secondly, it just so accidentally happens that that company that you are preferring, that has no money to buy, is a company that is co-owned by the president's son and people who call themselves friends of the president. And isn't that an oddity? So, but then you look at a whole series of these relationships at Denel, at PRASA, at Treasury, at the New Age contracts in the entire government procurement system. So here you see a web, not rumor about who's capturing who. You're talking about concrete contracts where companies co-owned by the Guptas and the president's son are suddenly being given preference. And these are not companies that have been in the field forever, where you can say, okay, it's wrong, it's market dominance, but they have the skills, they have the experience. No, they formed overnight, and overnight they're getting these contracts. And so that's the part about the capture of the public procurement system. And it's very serious because how government delivers is primarily through the people it employs, and secondarily, but equally importantly, through those it procures to deliver on its behalf. And then Bianca then says it was not just about the public procurement system. What is more sinister here is really the hollowing out of institutions. And that should concern us because we elect people to go and become our public representatives. And we expect that once they are on the other side, they'll be governed by the Constitution. They'll be governed by the manifesto that they gave us. They'll be governed by the laws. But above everything else, they'll be governed by selflessness because they are exercising entrusted power. So here we are now, we're having a handful that have forgotten about the Constitution, about the party manifesto, and they are governing on their own behalf. But also you have a shadow government, people outside government that are dictating who gets appointed, who does what. And when people stand in their way, they get removed. So that's what we talk about when we're talking about state capture. It's not just who was giving people bribe packs to give them contracts. It's really the perversion of democracy and assault on democracy, to use the language that Elvis has used.
The improper control of the public procurement system. I wonder how much this report goes to showing Joe Public the signs and symptoms, if they can pick it up more clearly now than before this report. Advocates, stand by. I've noted Mangaliso as well, Moss and Tla as well. I wanted to ask a question. Mzonile Mbecha, I want to get your take with regards to the response from the foundation, Jacob Zuma Foundation. But let's hear from the people in Wynberg, north of Johannesburg, what they had to say with regards to the handover of the final state capture report. This is the Word on the Street feature.
Now that the final state capture report is out, what should happen next? Are you confident anything will happen? PPE yonke into nje abayithathile mabalethe back babotshwe labantu abenze yonke lento ngoba namhlanje thina siyasokola, izinto ziyadura, ukudla kuyadura, imisebenzi ayikho, i-corruption iphezulu ngoba kuqale bona abantu baseparlamente.
What is frightening is the fear and paranoia that has gone across our society with what happened with state capture and the fact that it happened so smoothly. Thank you.
Santane sloba taba ya khotho na go etela a bona re e tonka 1 month or is more than 5 years.
Batho bo chinyao ka ba fariwe bote
ka ba de bitse ke morumile ra re ke thumame ha go toka iphethela ba ba sentjeng aba jeli aba melato wa bona ba ya rabe ha ba ya trunga ba ya trungu.
State capture se ska sheba ko sighting A1 pen state capture king thoileng ya thoma khale during apartheid time until they are known. then let's not check the ANC. Are checking the National Party. Ilya, it's a state capture record the arms is the Kubulai Wabat Momakation.
All right, that's the Word on the Street feature, getting your views there with regards to what the expectation is over the next 4 months. Mzwandile Mbecha is here. He was attending, well, both conferences, at the Union Buildings, as well as yesterday with the Jacob Zuma Foundation. They have described it as evidence surrounding, it doesn't go beyond innuendo and conjecture. I think that was the words that they used. They called it highly irrational and unlawful. What's the next step for them?
Well, I think not two things, but I'm just going to mention two, which obviously are quite important. Number one, they are challenging the aspects that relate primarily to the former president. But the second one, which is, I think, is very important, they are saying they are reporting the Chief Justice to the JSE, right. to the JSC over his reckless utterances. That's what they are saying. So basically, and also they are going to court to really challenge the appointment of Chief Justice as the Chief Justice. So there is quite a number of issues that come together around this. But when it relates to the report, they are going to challenge the aspects of it, and which I think at the end of the day may just be about the entire report. But of course, the Chief Justice will also be reported to the JSC. Right.
I know we need to take a quick break. Do we have time to get a few comments, or do we need to take a break now, Control? All right, let's take a quick break. We have Adv Thuli Madonsela here with us, Mzwandile Mbecha. We have a digital audience. They want to ask questions. We're going to come back. More next. Welcome back. You're watching It's Topical. Now, this week, the Zondo Commission report was made public, and among the recommendations were issues around the state-owned enterprises, the SABC. It came under the spotlight. Our co-producer, Mark Ketla Motlabe, has more on this.
Today's handover, ladies and gentlemen, is of great and historic importance.
June the 22nd, 2022, the long and curious wait finally over.
It has been 4.5 years since the commission was established.
The shuttering of a camera, capturing a damning report on what was captured, a democratic country.
State capture really was an assault on our democracy. It violated the rights of every man, woman, and child in this country.
An assault that has put a dent into South African communities' trust in institutions and leadership. According to the Commission's report, the state capture frenzy was felt throughout some of the state-owned enterprises. Even the public broadcaster was not spared.
My question is...
This TNA breakfast show aired on the SABC, leaving much to be desired.
We still feel the effects.
Phil MOLEFE, who was the acting CEO at the time, agrees.
It also had a huge reputational damage on the SABC, in that here you had a public broadcaster that had surrendered or abdicated its responsibility to arrange interviews, to arrange broadcasts of events of national importance, and abdicating that responsibility to another agency or another media house, which, as it were, was a competitor to the SABC. The forces were far too strong.
MOLEFE claims the management tried to fight at the time, but this was a losing battle.
The forces were just too powerful. I mean, this involved the presidency, some cabinet ministers, and very, very influential political leaders in the country who were in the same group with the Gupta, formation.
Accusations that police...
The whole thing was basically the colonization of the SABC. My view is the TNA breakfast should not have happened in the first place.
MOLEFE says he presented the evidence before Parliament and felt it was adequate enough and therefore didn't have to present it to the Zondo Commission. The Commission has since recommended that the SABC must recover over 4 million rand from the TNA arrangement.
So there is more that really needs to be recovered, and I think this is something that really must be done, and not only recover the money, but the people responsible for those decisions must be held to account.
Former COO Claudia Mutshwening's era at the public broadcaster also under the spotlight. The Commission recommends that the so-called success fee of 11 million rand must be recovered from him. But Mutshwening could not give an immediate comment, only saying he was still studying the report. In its statement, the SABC says it welcomes the Commission's findings and recommendations and will take advice from its lawyers on the way forward. For its Topical, SABC News, Johannesburg.
All right, Make, thank you very much indeed for your reporting. We're asking you with regards to your expectations, what happens now with regards to the next 4 months when President Cyril Ramaphosa is mulling over his intentions in terms of the recommendations. We ask you to give us a call, 011-714-5958. We have Mxolisi from Bombela on the line. Mxolisi, very good evening to you. What's on your mind?
Good evening, everyone, and good evening to your viewers.
Go on,
we are discussing a concept called state capture, and it comes from the state. That's very obscure itself. But then let's go on and forget that. The essence of the entire Zondo Commission was to investigate malfeasance within the state. So it was quite odd that the institutions which exist,
right,
such as the NPA, the police, are already existing to investigate issues of corruption, racketeering, bribery, all such issues that occur within the state.
We hear you, Mxolisi, with regards to getting all those working in a row with regards to the police, law enforcement, NPA, judiciary, etc. Important point. Jabulani from KZN is calling us. Jabulani, what's your take?
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having given me an opportunity. Mine is just a comment. I just want to thank the CJ, the Chief Justice, for making the steady job with all these diggings that he has dug from all these people who have come and testified before the commission. As he has said with his own words, the time was too little, otherwise it was not going to come to an end if we had to investigate everything. And he said it was going to be ideal for him if the beginning was going to be the investigation before the sitting of the commission itself. However, I want to commend him for doing all the job that he has done, and we are seeing the action from the NPA because a lot of people are currently going through the course of this country.
Right.
We have seen the former CEO of the Transnet, everybody is appearing in the court. They are all out on bail. We need to go down, and the court must now just do the job and put the guys behind the bars. And the NPA must also make sure that all these people pay back all the money they have stolen. And we are happy for the news that are coming from Dubai, that the guys who have killed this country are now behind the bars, and we are waiting for them to be extradited into our country to come and face the music. So I'm saying to the Chief Justice, thank you so much for the good job.
All right, Jabulani from KZN, thank you very much indeed. Calling for accountability. 011-714-5958 is the number. It's Topical. Quick break. More with our digital audience, as well as Adv Thuli Madonsela, Mzondi Lembeja, right here on SABC 2. Welcome back. You're watching It's Topical. Let's take it straight to our digital audience. We have Advocate Thuli Madonsela listening in. You have quick questions. We have less than 4 minutes on the program, guys, so please keep it short. Let's start with Moss and go to Mangaliso. Moss, you had a question.
Not really a question, Ben. What I wanted to say is that in terms of your question about expectations, I think as South Africans, the state capture report is saying to us on our 28th year of democracy, which is still a young democracy, that all of us as a society, particularly as the citizens, should do all that they can to figure out how to hold those in government accountable. And I think that's also one of the recommendations in the Zone Commission. So I think it's not all up to Parli, because we've seen how Parliament has failed us, how politicians have failed us, and we can't keep saying they will do it right next time.
Mr. Ntla, thank you very much indeed. Mangaliso, you had a question?
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to welcome the response by the Advocate Thuli Madonsela, former PP. But at the same time, since time is not on our side, I want to make closing remarks.
Mangaliso, we are losing you. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Just briefly.
I can hear you, but there's someone else with the mic.
Just briefly your question.
I can hear you.
Yes, go on. Go ahead.
Yes. My question is that the state, if we're talking about the state capture, the state consists of three arms, which is one, the executive, secondly, the legislature, and then thirdly, the judiciary. And it seems as if though there will never be a complete state capture report until we also look or we also investigate and inquire about the processes that also involve other parts of the state, that is the judiciary for that matter, because it seems as if it continues to carry much of the work done by the inquiry than any of the other arms of the state.
All right, let's take it to Advocate Thuli Madonsela.
It is in essence,
just due to time, we have to keep it a bit brief. Go ahead, Professor Madonsela.
Thank you again. Let me start with Mangaliso's question. State capture does not mean you have captured the whole state. But surely when you are the president or you are working with the president to hijack and repurpose strategic elements of the state, that cannot be said not to be state capture. And the second one that I want to go to is the report is full of innuendos. No, just connect the dots. All of the dots that were left incomplete in the public protector report have now finally been connected full circle. You're still dealing with just a handful, the president, his son, the Gupta brothers, and how they attacked these institutions. But just I want to say in ending, colleagues, we keep thinking that the Guptas captured the state. But if you look at what happened at the State Security Agency, what happened at SARS, I think we have to begin to look at whether our president, whom we all loved because he was the president of the country, did not himself perpetrate the act of capturing the state for his personal purposes and start treating the state as a private enterprise to evade accountability and to control the state procurement system. And that some of this then was done in collaboration with the Guptas, but some of it was done without the Guptas.
Advocate, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts. Final thought, word to you, Mzwai.
Well, we expect the president to act. He has said after 4 months, there'll be implementation, and every action will be followed thoroughly. We are waiting, we are watching.
All right. Mzondile Mbeche, Advocate Thuli Madonsela, former public protector. I saw Sibongile. I know you're raising your hands when you got 30 seconds to go. We'll get your comments. We'll put it up on our socials. We thank you very much indeed for your time. Here's my take. The findings and recommendations contained in the state captured report, are they spelled out in clear and set terms that amounts to an assault on corruption in this country? Time will tell. It might take time to investigate and prosecute. Consequences are in part a function of the speeded process. And many want, as you heard, immediate action. But how do we find the balance between swift action and competent investigations to avoid botch-ups, while at the same time ensuring that people's faith in the legal system as well as government is rewarded with what they find in their future? To the decision makers, you don't want to play with legitimate frustration. You want to speak to it and have a counter message that makes people feel included and empowered. Communication will be key during this period. After all, this democracy won't work if we don't have an informed citizenry. The news continues. Stand by for the Globe. Until next week, take care. Bye-bye.